Hey everyone, I'm Will. I work out of the Chicago Valorum office alongside the lovely folks who spoke before me today. And today, as you know, Marcus set me up great. I'm going to be talking about Microsoft Copilot. So of course, today's event, Fall in Love, Do More with Less. I think it would be a huge miss if we didn't talk about AI and all the things that we could do with it. So instead of talking about it or trying to tell you what it is, I'm just going to play this quick little video from Microsoft so that you guys can get a better understanding of what it might be. Cool. So yeah, that was a quick little video about Copilot. If you haven't heard of it yet, now you have. Again, really just being able to do a lot with it. As you saw in the video, you can draft a lot of content in Word. You can have it even give you draft for slides in PowerPoint. You can have it do a bit of data analysis in Excel. So some really cool stuff that you can do with this. And again, being able to have a virtual assistant like Copilot do all of these sort of more tedious tasks that take up a lot of time in your day. Now you're more free to do things that are more meaningful work and definitely provide more impact. So just want to dive a little bit into sort of what happens behind the scenes when we use Copilot. So Copilot, again, being that it's AI, if you've ever heard the term "you get out what you put in," it really applies to Copilot. So as you saw in the video, the only way to interact with it is to give it prompts. Tell it to do things like, hey, start a draft document for me, or set up a meeting with someone else. I think what it'll do when you give it a prompt like that, first it'll go and fetch any relevant details. So for example, if I wanted to invite a colleague to a meeting, I want to invite Danny to a meeting, then it would go to my Outlook calendar, it would go to Danny's Outlook calendar, it would grab both of our schedules and try to find a time slot that would fit for both of us. Again, that's just a really simple example, but basically that's what would happen behind the scenes. First, it would fetch those details, and then it would have a sort of itemized list of steps that it would take. And when we talk about the prompts that we give it, there's a key term within AI called grounding, and that's specifically for improving the prompt quality. So again, you get out what you put in. If you give it sort of an ambiguous prompt, or you don't really make it clear what you're trying to do to Copilot, then you're not going to get much value out of it. So grounding is really important here to make sure that your prompt quality is exactly what you're asking for and not something else. And so this happens initially, first rounds with Graph APIs and Microsoft 365 apps. Once it has a better idea of what you're trying to do, it'll then process it through the large language model. And that's where sort of the beauty happens between with Copilot. That's where sort of the magic happens. And then finally, once it goes through a few more rounds of grounding and really just goes through some final security compliance checks, then it'll finally action out what I wanted to do. So that's when it'll go back to Microsoft 365 apps and finally execute my command, which is generating a draft in Word doc or setting up that meeting that I wanted to set up. Next, want to talk about Power Platform and Copilot and what's going to happen next. So we have another quick video here.
Platform, you can use natural language to bring ideas to life in a new design experience. With Copilot and Power Apps, describe your app in a few simple words, and next generation AI will create your app and help you refine and update it. With Copilot and Power Automate, building flows to automate your world has never been easier. You can start by describing your process in a few simple sentences, and Power Automate will build your flow. With Copilot and Power Virtual Agents, building a complex chatbot to answer and manage internal and external conversations has never been simpler. And with the AI Builder, you have access to the Azure OpenAI model in a low-code experience to configure and embed next-generation AI to generate, summarize, classify, translate text, and more in your apps and flows in a few clicks. The future of low-code starts today. Imagine it, describe it, Power Platform builds it.
So yeah, that was just another cool little video about Copilot and what it'll bring along with or how it'll affect Power Platform. You heard a little bit earlier today from Marcus talking about Power Platform. Essentially, it's a low-code, no-code solution platform that Microsoft is pushing out. It's something that developers of all skill levels can utilize and really make really cool solutions with. So again, when we're talking about AI, Power Platform, which is already a low-code, no-code solution, I think Copilot is going to empower first-time makers or those, I guess, who aren't terribly familiar with Power Platform, be able to even drive more value out of it. So definitely a huge potential to be a game changer in that space. Review and quality control, definitely when we're talking about AI, this new technology, it's not perfect. So I think as humans, we need to be the ones that are doing the quality control and making sure that the AI is not doing something that we don't want it to. Or even if it does mistakes, we need to catch those and make sure that we're on top of quality control. So prompt quality, I've already talked about that, super important. AI has already been a thing in Power Platform for 2 years. So you currently, it's always been a thing that you can sort of use natural language or give it prompts to write Power effects. So that little segment, bits of code, queries, basically just building blocks. Now that Copilot is coming out and it's built on GPT-4, you can actually use natural language to write entire applications with the front end built out, the database, and even the logic that writes data back to the database as well. So the key message here being that Power Platform, it is a really great tool. Copilot, it's still not generally available yet. All we know so far is that Microsoft is testing it with about 20 clients, and in the coming few months, we'll know a little bit more about the pricing and when it'll be available. So again, being able to get familiar with Power Platform before Copilot is released, so that when Copilot launches, we can really just drive the maximum value from the products. So again, talking more about how to prepare for the release of Copilot. The human aspect of change should always be well managed. I think there's two different sides on the spectrum. There's people who don't really care for AI, don't really know what it's going to be used for, don't think it's going to have much of an impact. And then there are those who are really excited for it, really excited to use the tool to be able to do more with less. So as I mentioned, most likely will not be available for the next couple of months. Especially in the tech industry, we've seen a huge increase in excitement and just general increase in ChatGPT and AI. So again, Microsoft releasing Copilot at this time is just, it's indicative of how disruptive AI is going to be in the market. So again, lastly, needing to fact check when using AI. Again, it can be a huge time-saving tool, but if we just let it run wild and we're not really doing much quality control, then it might be even detrimental. Copilot for Viva, we've heard a lot about Viva today, so just again wanted to put a quick slide here to, I guess, highlight sort of what would be offered along with the Viva suite. So when we talk about Engage, Copilot, what it can do, you can feed Copilot prompts, so it creates draft posts for you. that you would post and engage. It can offer suggestions to personalize messages and responses. You can even analyze engagement metrics on your posts and different posts. In the learning module, it suggests curated learning collections tailored to specific roles. So someone who's a product manager might receive a different line of learning than someone who's a retail store associate. Goals, so suggesting draft OKR recommendations based on existing documents, and then also consolidating existing data to generate more comprehensive check-ins. If you're not familiar with goals, it's a tool that you can use to sort of set goals, and I think the Viva suite is just tied in really well, or Copilot ties in really well with goals. Then we have topics. Again, something we can do with Copilot is using natural language to learn more about topics and seeing related events. And then finally, Glint. If you haven't heard of Glint, it's LinkedIn's product. I think Microsoft has recently acquired it, but it's a tool that sort of a lot of companies can use to sort of capture feedback about their organization and conduct exit surveys and et cetera. So with Copilot and Glint, we can summarize and analyze thousands of employee comments, and then also use natural language to explore feedback and ask questions.